The first video game mistake I ever made was not owning an original Nintendo. I mean, I did later on in college when you could find practically every NES game in existence for $3. But when I was a kid, I couldn't just will one into existence. I had to pay for one, and my bank account, that being of a 7-year-old, just didn't allow for that. My second gaming mistake came just a few years later when I was choosing my first console ever. Now, I have to give credit where credit's due. The teenage employee of Electronics Boutique tried his damnedest to convince me to buy a Super Nintendo, going so far as to show me the graphical difference between Ghouls and Ghosts on Genesis and Super Ghouls and Ghosts on Super Nintendo. It was a defining moment in my gaming life. Sega's commercials for Sonic the Hedgehog must have really worked on me, because that day I went home with my very own Sega Genesis. Now don't get me wrong, Sega defenders, I had a blast with my Genesis. Road Rash, Castle of Illusion, Virtua Racing, Splatterhouse, Streets of Rage, all great exclusives. But my bread and butter was adventure games, and if I knew how much I would have loved Square's RPGs on the SNES, my decision would have been radically different. But let's try to stay on track here. Sonic was Sega's answer to Mario. And when I was a kid, I ate it up. Sonic moved fast and was colorful, the music was catchy, and every game was bigger and better than the last. But as the years went on, Sega's presence along with Sonic's reputation went from being good to bad to worst. And over the last few years in particular, those original 2D games on the Genesis have come under fire. Some people claim that Sonic was always bad, right from the beginning, and our love for them is really just clouded by nostalgia and our loyalties during that 16-bit console war. To be fair, I didn't even know what side I was on. Personally, I never made the claim that Sonic was better than Mario. It's hard to argue that Mario 1, 2, 3, and World aren't 2D masterpieces. They are, they're unbelievable. But I thought Sonic could hold his own, that despite playing second fiddle to Mario, he was still a fantastic platformer. And after all these years, I finally went back to where it started. I can't lie, as soon as the Sega logo flashed across the screen and the snare drums hit, Sonic poked his head through the title screen, nostalgia hit me like a brick. The music, the colors, all better than I remember them, probably due to my home stereo setup and the upscaled image on a 50-inch plasma. And the next hour and 20 minutes went by in a blur. I grabbed every Chaos Emerald, Extra Life, Ring, only died a few times, and exploited every secret passage for every hidden item. I remembered this being a lot harder. I also remembered it being a lot more fun. Here's the major problem with Sonic 1. It was marketed as a fast game, faster than anything on Nintendo. Even Sonic's name implies speed. It's impressive for sure, but the real enjoyment of Sonic games comes from exploration. The levels are all well designed with lots of different paths and hidden passages to discover. And you'll want to take your time to make sure that you cross the finish line with enough rings to activate every bonus stage. But Sonic's controls aren't built for exploration, they're made for speed. There's no run button, Sonic just builds up momentum as you hold a direction on the D-pad. This can lead to a lot of tapping back and forth to make precise jumps. Some of the levels can be super frustrating too. Labyrinth Zone in particular shouldn't even exist in this game. You're underwater for almost all of it, and it's slower than slow. It's just torturous. Not quite as bad as Springyard Zone, the first appearance of pinball-like bumpers in the Sonic series. This totally sucks. The secret stages can be maddening too. Although I appreciate mixing up the gameplay styles, the rotation here is just too choppy, and moving Sonic through the maze requires almost more luck than skill, though these were a lot easier than I remember them being too. I think as a kid, I only successfully got all the Chaos Emeralds once, and here, I did it on my very first try. Actually, the whole game is pretty easy. Neither levels nor bosses presented any real challenge, but I'll attribute part of that to the 100 hours I must have spent with Sonic 1 25 years ago. Still, all that being said, Sonic 1 is a good time and a decent mascot. It's not the pinnacle of the series or platformers in general, but it's certainly better than, say, Bubsy the Bobcat, Arrow the Acrobat, Jersey Devil, KO the Kangaroo, Ty the Tasmanian Tiger, Green Dog the Beach Surfer Dude, Mr. Bones, Blinks the Time Sweeper, Voodoo Vince, Clockwork Knight, Bug, Gex, Super Magnetic Neo, Echo the Dolphin, Scud the Disposable...